Hey everybody, and welcome to Fix My Coaster Layout Episode 3. This is a collaboration between myself and Andrew from MickanMan's RCT station, where we take user-submitted coaster layouts and offer suggestions for how to improve them, whether that is flow or realism or scenario play or whatever else. So in the last episode, we looked at Surf's Up by QDude 24. This was a premiere launch coaster that he offered for us within his larger scenario here. And on my channel, we kind of took this out of the context of the map here and did a triple launch with an additional kind of secondary launch, following sort of the icebreaker mentality from SeaWorld. And it made it sort of longer layout, I guess, as compared to where it had originally started. Here is Andrew's layout, on the other hand, and we're going to take a look at what he did to start here. And actually, I really like what was done here. First of all, the fact that he left everything in place and basically built around existing conditions, which is really nice. So it's going to fit in pretty much the same spot. First kind of key thing is we have a nice holding spot here for the launch track. It's also held up off the ground, so we don't have any track on the ground, which is pretty important as far as I'm concerned. But once this clears the block breaks, we have our first launch here into our top hat, kind of matching what QDude had before. So this first section has a nice little figure eight, good little airtime hill here, and just cruises nicely around this space. I like that he's got the water splash here, and then also we're wrapping this lighthouse, which is kind of a fun addition there. That lighthouse already existed, so it's another kind of nice touch there. Secondary launch here goes through the water jets, simulating the same thing that QDude put together before. We're copying that figure eight motif here, just a little bit smaller, and then once more or less here, a little bit tight at the end. It's a little bit tight. The brake run maybe is a little bit short, but I think for the space provided, it's pretty nice. What I like about this too is the kind of clustered foliage here, different colors worth of floor or the landscaping. So we have the sand here on the edge, and then some mixture of the rock and the grass and dirt and the sand kind of throughout the rest of the space. Lush landscaping with still having some kind of nice open gaps as well. Lots of good viewing area along this whole thing. Fence kind of tying into the overall color scheme of the whole thing, and just a nice little simple station, nice little simple seating area, all those sorts of things. And then also another kind of subtle touch here was fixing the cable car that goes over this whole thing. If you remember from the original one, it kind of twisted in here and had a couple of different columns down. I don't really like to see turns on cable cars. There's very few realistic options for that, I suppose. So in this instance, I think it looks really nice, and would also be a really cool view here to watch the coaster from above. So done really well, and a pretty nice setup here for the whole thing. So keeping very close to that original idea, and definitely kind of fitting that scenario play, which is definitely sort of Andrew's MO for a lot of these, and I think that's pretty nice. But with that said, let's get into today's design. So as we jump over here to our next map, we will take a look. Today's layout comes to us from Ryan, who throws us a pretty interesting one. Let's do a Virginia reel. This scenario is Magic Quarters. If you're familiar with the original RCT1 scenarios, and we just won it there. Look at that. No effort whatsoever. But we have Magic Quarters here, and if you remember the original scenario, it kind of gave you 4 different areas here with this sort of castle in the middle. And actually, if you go here and hide the scenery, you can still kind of see the castle here more or less, just with the scenery gone from it. So this one here that Ryan presents to us is a pretty commanding sized Virginia reel coaster, all around the mountainside here, and his ask is to rework this as a centerpiece attraction that's maybe a little less dominating and kind of fits in as that kind of center showpiece weenie element for the park. He commented that it's okay to pull out some of these other rides around, which we're going to do here in a minute. But let's take a look at this real quick and just kind of see what was done here. There's not a lot you can do with Virginia Reel coasters in the game. And true to that, also, in real life, there wasn't a whole lot that was done to them either. We're going to kind of... Oh, so much for Perseus there. We're going to forego the... we're going to forego the realism aspect here for a little bit, although we're going to take some points from realism and work it into our new layout as we go through, because I do want to really follow the prompts and the asks to make this sort of a centerpiece that wrapped around our existing space here. Afterwards, I will show you what I would consider a nice realistic attempt at a Virginia Reel, also including some different track pieces. So we'll do that in Sandbox afterwards. But we've got a pretty big lift here, or actually two different lifts, and then kind of going into, out of, all throughout this whole space, around the whole thing. Nice bright yellow track. It's actually themed to Jason and the Argonauts, which is an interesting throwback theme, and one that I can't say I'm super familiar with. So this is the Golden Fleece. To Ryan's initial email to us, the theme could be whatever we wanted it to be, so I'm going to keep it a little bit generic here, but still utilizing that central mountain. So now that we've seen what has been thrown together here and offered to us, let's jump on over and build one for ourselves. I've gone ahead and cleared out the rides around our Virginia Reel coaster here. Not all of them necessarily had to go, but one of the things that I wanted to do just for the purposes of building this was just to clear some things out a little bit and help open up the space a little bit. So Ryan's email asked for a signature ride sort of as an entry feature. So as you can see, as we come through the midway here, this is the first thing that we get to. So what I want to do is open it up a little bit, and I don't really want any other rides competing with it. So that's why half of the reason why we're clearing the rest out. What I also want to do is make sure that we have a good approach and a visual to it. So if you walk all the way right up to here, right to these benches, we're ignoring that broken one, then you look up, you're not really going to see much of anything. You're going to see this coaster cruising ahead, but you're not going to see half of the stuff up above because you're too close. So the idea here is to step some guests back a little bit for the initial approach, and then build our coaster in such a way that it sort of works its way down the mountainside. What I'd like to do is kind of keep some similar things like the station and the lift hill kind of where it is, and then do a more organized kind of pass in front. So maybe 1, 2 back the other way, and 3 back the other way, and then some switchbacks on either side. So the idea is to get some of those more realistic details, but not fill it up so high that we're going to obscure some of the scenery. So let's go through and delete this guy. And I'm also going to go through here and clear out some scenery. We're going to clear this last bank of space there pathway-wise. Clear ourselves a little space kind of all around, and then also get our pathways clear on this side also. We've already got some guests in here too, so let's clear those guys out as well. All right, so when we remove all of this, you can kind of clearly see where the castle feature was at one point. We're going to keep it there. We're actually going to use our coaster as delineation for kind of where that used to be. So we're going to have a pass in the front here that just stays level, but the reason it stays level is it's going to basically act as our sort of horizontal delineator between the space up above and the space down below. Now, kind of the signature element of Virginia Reels, and really just what you see in general, are switchbacks. And typically I like to do switchbacks as a either 3 or 4, and then a hairpin corner. It just fills out the space a little better and feels pretty proportional. And usually I drop every other one. So in this instance here, let's get in, we would do something along the lines of like, let's actually build this on 0 clearances. Something along the lines of this, where we're going to dip down, and then we'll have a straight section. Then we'll have 3 more straight sections, then we'll curve, then we'll dip again. And so now we're set up just like this. What I probably will do here, since I think now I want to take this all the way around, I don't know, I probably won't dip until I get over here again, so it probably would be worth going one more here, just to give it that little bit of extra space, or a little bit extra speed, and then also that little bit of height differential here. Because like we said, we're trying to do these kind of passes in front, and use those passes to really accentuate the height of the mountain. So let's do it this way maybe, and then I kind of look at this as sort of in and out of some tunnels, maybe some mine type stuff a little lower on, and then we'll have trees and things around the back. We'll have our little castle, chateau, mansion, whatever this becomes up top, and then down here what I want to do is have a setback viewing area. So we're going to call, let's do this, we're going to call this like a little kind of pond here, and the effect that gives is that we can kind of sit here, and we'll expand this pathway a little bit, and you can look across this entire thing, and you can see sort of this tableau that we're creating from a little bit of a distance. You're not right up on it. And you will be able to walk all the way around it, just as the nature of the scenario goes. I don't really want to get away from that, but that's a good way to do it as well. I'm not quite sure how this switchback is going to go quite yet, so let's actually do a little trick here. Sometimes when I don't know quite what I want to build with, I'm going to go ahead and build the section that I want to work with from an interaction standpoint. So if I have my water down here, I want to build this kind of faux water splash. So I want 3 pieces down here, and I want 3 pieces because it aligns with our midway here. You can see we get the 3 flower pieces across. So we're going to go straight up and align it there, and then we'll kind of put a whole section like this. Behind this piece will be some kind of like a waterfall element, I would think. And then we will lower this down 1, because I don't really want the wooden coaster sitting right on top of the water. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from a wooden coaster standpoint or a realism standpoint. So we'll bring it down here, and added bonus, then we'll have our decking of path above this space in some form or another. So this sort of represents our climax of the ride, the fastest portion, I suppose. Let's back up here just a little bit and see how we want to do this. We go up, back, that will line it up there, and then let's give ourselves that one big kick, because we're dropping pretty far. This is a huge Virginia Reel coaster. This is not a typical thing that you would have. So we're gonna do our same little 3B switchbacks here, and we'll come across like this, and then we'll come back through here and adjust all of our landscape. And I don't think you need to adjust as you build, not necessarily a requirement, but at least we can kind of figure out how it's gonna more or less look as we come through this whole thing. Maybe this comes down a little bit, and then we have this sort of higher up off the ground. In the case of coaster itself on the ground, Virginia Reel I don't necessarily care so much about as I would other coasters that would have columns and footers below and things like that. But this one, I think you can get away with it sitting on the ground. Just I do avoid that in a lot of these areas because I want to go back and forth with playing around with the height of everything. We can go ahead and clear this out as well. Okay, so we're going to be moving pretty fast here. We don't want to launch the thing, so let's go back up and we'll see if that's enough. And then I kind of think our station is going to be here, so let's try and get our lift hill just through the back of this space. And I feel like it's going to be too much flat if we just drop once here off the lift hill and go all the way. So let's give it sort of this little double down boost. And then I see this lift hill is kind of going through some tunnels as we get up top. Let's see if we can make this work. Perfect, actually. There we go. So these rides don't have blocks, they don't have brakes, they don't have any of that sort of stuff. So from a realistic detail standpoint, you're not really going to have a lot of that. Granted, the real ones didn't quite have some of that because they were 1920s type coasters, but we'll make the station long enough that we can get some cars in here. So let's make it 5 per se, and then we'll have this kind of straight section in the back. The big thing with these coasters, in my opinion, is don't be afraid of straight sections, long straight sections, but also don't go too erratic. You really want to do this where you're going to have a straight section and then a corner and then a bit more of a straight section before a corner. So what I don't recommend is coming in here and if you're having a twist like this, kind of coming right back at it and doing this sort of thing, because that's just going to really throw off your car. You want to really ease through the corners back and forth. You don't want it to be so abrupt. And actually, the way that I kind of am looking at this is what I could see us having is maybe a tower here. Let's bring this down. So a tower here, and then call this a tower, and then this a tower, and maybe we actually put one over here too. In some sense, maybe it sits. We don't want the whole facade to be flat, so we'll put one right there, and then we can build a kind of roof structure here. So a little bit asymmetrical, which I think is okay, especially when we're doing things like this. But actually, if we have this section here kind of between these towers, so we'll call this tower, like this. This could be open, and actually what we could do is put in a little just in the thematic element here where we drop it inside and bring it back. All right, so let's test this out and see how we're doing. We've got 6 cars, which seems fair. We probably want to space it just a little bit, but 10 seconds could be fine to start. We can increase that a little bit. We don't want these to go too fast. These were not like thrilling high-speed coasters. You just didn't have that. But this one is going to be quick just based on how big it is. This would have probably been the world's biggest Virginia rail coaster. We're already at 17 miles an hour here at the start. We got this nice kind of raised section here, which could be interesting over top of the station. 22, 24. So this section, I think, back here. This section could be pretty cool here with this in and out of these tunnels as kind of a fun open-closed sensation. And then we're going to come out of here, going pretty fast here for that final drop, but actually the speed for the final climb here looks all right. You'll note, though, that we only had one climb on the whole thing, and that's here at the very, very end, and that's on purpose. In the same manner as like a bobsled or an alpine coaster or things like that, we really don't have climbs and hills on this. It's really just a slow descending slalom that just kind of works its way down, and then you might have one climb at the end to get it back to station level, and that's about it. So you don't need to go too far into it. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that layout, actually. So I'm going to step aside here for a minute and theme this up just a little bit, and then we'll come back and take a look. So here we are with a little bit of theming, and not super detailed. Now, as you know, if you've watched this channel, I'm not great with no custom scenery, and especially limited no custom scenery. So all I used was what we had here within the scenario, so missing a lot of kind of key things like the castle scenery that I would have really loved to use, but nevertheless, we're just going to make a quick attempt at this. So what I did is basically created a viewing area here with the water looking out to this coaster as it kind of dives past the waterfall, which I think is sort of a cool effect. We've sort of broken this up into 3 sections. So we got this bottom section here with the water, you've got your mid section here of the mountainside, and then you've got your top section here with the coaster itself. Or sorry, the castle itself with the coaster going through it. I painted the side walls yellow here just as an homage to the original Golden Fleece coaster from Ryan's submission. But as far as coverage and everything else, I did some kind of fun stuff with the queue over here, up and down, in and out, just kind of playing with the landscape and heights of things. You'll notice too that I kind of slowly brought down the landscape, so We're not really seeing a whole lot of sheer cliff faces right up against the pathway, so we got a little bit of buffer here. Also some trees and things stacked throughout, but also keeping open spaces so you can kind of look up and see the the coaster coming through. Out here for our little tunnel, I put some sort of mine wood type stuff here, so it is sort of halfway enclosed and then fully enclosed within the tunnel, using some blank signage here to do some kind of a beam almost across, and then we put a little expanded pond here and then crossed it on this side. Obviously, 2 across pathways aren't quite where we're looking for scenario play, but this is something I can't really get away with. I like the look of it better. We also use the 3 distinct fountains, the dolphin, the elephant, and the abstract one, just as the different center points for the branches of our Magic Quarters Park, and then I guess this water feature here would represent the 4th one here. And then for our entrance, just a little statue here, some brick walls to delineate the entrance, trying to keep this brick and this brick up here the same to try and tie it all together. So that's what we've got, and that's my attempt at fixing this coaster layout, and hopefully it's a decent look and a good blend of some realism and more scenario type play. Before we go, I want to jump over real quick and do a real fast build of a more realistic Virginia reel, just so you can kind of see what that might look like. So we'll do that, and then we'll wrap up for the day. There aren't a whole lot of layout varieties with the early Virginia reel coasters. There just weren't. It was pretty simple, you know, essentially a modern Wild Mouse coaster, switchbacks and that sort of thing. To build what I call the sort of realistic type, we're actually going to take the side friction and use this for a lot of the ride, and then we'll kind of intersperse some other bits and pieces in, but we're only going up 6, so just 6 in this direction, and that's pretty much it. Like I said on our other one, I went 3 across for the switchbacks. For this, it's more proportional for me to do the 4 over. So we're going to do 4, and then we're going to come back 4 flat. We're going to drop another one. We're going to drop another one. And now we're going to get to the more fun stuff. So let's go back to the side friction. Actually, what we're going to do is go to the wooden coaster. So this is sort of an amalgamation of stuff, and it may not necessarily fit what you're looking for in some instances as far as this goes, but I think it looks good, and that's kind of what I'm going for. We don't want 25, we want the sort of undulating finale. And we can kind of end this over in this direction if we want, with a larger corner. And then kind of come back and put the brakes on outside here, or really kind of any means that we want, but we can kind of do it just like this. So when we go back to our side friction coaster, this is what we have. And when we go back to our Virginia reel, this is what we have. So really what we do is take our side friction here, which we'll consider our base, and we'll come back here with zero clearances. We're building this backwards. We don't accidentally merge things. And then we'll come out of here and delete the stuff in the middle. And once you theme this up with rock work and things like that, I think it can look pretty cool. Hopefully one day we may have the ability to have some additional track pieces that would help us with doing this kind of a thing in the game. And also some vehicles that will match this overall design as well. But since we don't have them, I'm going to make do with what we got. And what you can do for this section, depending on how you want to go about it, is you can make this continuous with the wooden coaster so it just looks a little more like it matches everything, or you can do something like this. Whatever works for you. Once you get enough theming on here, it may not really make a difference. And there we go, invisible entrance and exit. And then we're gonna go with the single car trains. And we don't need many. We can call them, say, 8. Call it 7, lucky 7. And here you have a more realistic Virginia reel, more so towards what you would get from some of the designs like you might see at Blackpool or Coney Island, or any number of things. You can speed up the lift hill too if you want, where at 3 miles per hour we can go to 4 if we like. Again, it's good to space the cars out a little bit. I would probably end up spacing them so that either only one is on the lift hill or one is just exiting the lift hill as the next one comes on. And here we got this sort of nice dive and climb section here. It offers a cool finish, and then it heads into the bowels of the structure. But anyway, this has not really anything to do with Ryan's initial layout, but I thought I might suggest this since I was going more towards the scenario play for the poster layout itself. But hope you enjoyed. We will next time come back and take a new layout to improve, and also take a look at what Andrew did for the Virginia Reel. And I'm pretty excited to see that, just because we just don't really see many of these kind of rides, so everything comes across as pretty unique. If you would like to submit a coaster for consideration, send it to fixmycoasterlayout@gmail.com. You can find that email in the description. Andrew and I will both take a stab at it. Obviously, we've gotten quite a few submissions so far, so certainly it might take a little bit of time, but for sure we will hopefully get to it. And with your feedback, we will continue to grow this little showcase. So until next time, thank you guys very much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye now.